To the Waycast. We are in chapter 20 on this third edition for this evening. Uh, these are short chapters, and so we're able to do many of them in one night. And so we are in section verses 1 through 5. This is the third missionary journey of Paul is concluded. After Paul's experience in Ephesus, he continues on to Macedonia, to Philippi, back to Troas, and to Miletus. The elders of the church in Ephesus meet him in Miletus, and they have a tender reunion and a touch of farewell. Paul goes into Macedonia. Verse 1. And after the uproar had ceased, Paul called unto him the disciples and embraced them and departed for to go into Macedonia. And when he had gone over those parts and had given them much exhortation, he came into Greece. This means that he revisited Athens and Corinth. Verse 3. And there abode 3 months, and then the Jews laid wait for him as he was about to sail in Syria. He purposed to return through Macedonia, and there accompanied him into Asia Sopater of Berea and of the Thessalonians, Aristarchus and Secundus and Gaius of Derbe and Timotheus and of Asia Tychicus and Trophimus. And the men named are all believers who had come to Christ under the ministry of Paul. He has quite a delegation now. These men have become missionaries. We need to recognize that when Paul went through Greece and Macedonia, he visited all the churches which he had founded there. He would have stopped at Athens and Corinth, at Thessalonica and Berea and Philippi. So he retraced his steps and visited all the churches that were in Europe, or at least in the European section of his third journey. Paul at Troas. One may remember that Troas was the springboard from which Paul leaped into Europe on his second missionary journey. Now he comes back to Troas as his last missionary journey. Verse 5. These going before tarried for us at Troas. The us indicates that Dr. Luke is still with Paul, while the others go ahead of him to Troas. This is quite a group of men, missionaries who worked with Paul. I take it that these men had been traveling with Paul before, when Paul would have a ministry in a place like Corinth. Probably these men would radiate out and have a ministry in the countryside of the small towns. We read in the epistle to the Colossians about the fact that the word of God had sounded out in that day to the whole world. That sounds unbelievable, but it was true. It was not no or, oratorical gesture. Of course, the whole world means the Roman world, because that was the world of that day. The world of God, the word of God has spread throughout the Roman world. We get some insight here and recognize that there were other people working with the apostles. Acts trace the work of Peter and Paul as the dominant ones, Peter as the apostle to the Jews and Paul as the apostle to the Gentiles. What we have here is in in the book of Acts is a very limited account of the